Coming up next on the Bang on a Can Marathon is the premiere of a new work by Gabriel Kahane to be played by Hlusko. You will know Arlen as the cellist in the Bang on a Can All Stars. She's joining us from somewhere in Ontario, and Gabe is joining us from Portland, Oregon. It's good to see the two of you.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Gabe, your piece is called Hollywood and Vine. Not the first time that you have written specifically about LA, and even more specifically about various points in LA. What's going on with this piece?
Well, as I was confessing to Arlen in one of our little therapy sessions, I every time I get asked to write a piece of instrumental concert music, I'm sort of fighting the fact that I sort of live most naturally as a songwriter, but I have this other career writing concert music. And often I have had the experience of writing a piece of concert music and it's sort of formal and full of thickets of chromaticism and barbs. And then the person who's commissioned it says, wait, I thought I was getting Gabriel the songwriter. And of course, there's this kind of crisis in the 21st century where the harmonic language that feels natural as a songwriter, when you translate it to concert music, sometimes feels retrograde. And this is a short piece in which I've tried to really honor my roots as a songwriter, and there are little allusions that sort of feel like sort of the harmonic language that I associate with Laurel Canyon and with Elliott Smith. And Hollywood and Vine, of course, is an iconic intersection and district essentially in LA. So that's sort of where this came from. And speaking of that harmonic language, it spawned a series of conversations that Arlen and I have been having about how to find the sort of voice and sound on the cello that feels more vernacular and less, 19th century romantic.
Or 18th century Baroque suite.
Right.
Yeah. So, Arlen, what are those conversations? I mean, this is one of the great things about working with living composers is you can have those conversations, and they don't always have to be about the nuts and bolts of the score. They can be more broadly about music in general. How useful is that to you as a performer?
So useful. I mean, especially during this time, I feel like the only real collaboration we can have as performers is with composers. And so it's so invigorating and fun to work with different composers who, I mean, Gabriel is the first composer I've worked with that comes from a more folk songwriting background. And so I've been listening to a lot of his music and trying to emulate that sound more on the cello. And it's just a really fun exploration to get into that world.
Yeah. Were you at all a fan of the Laurel Canyon or Elliott Smith, both of whom would be before your time, but, how much awareness of that kind of songwriting do you have?
I love Elliott Smith. I used to be obsessed and I would listen to his records on repeat for like 3 years. So I actually just learned that connection right now as Gabriel was talking about it, but I'm really happy to hear that, and I'm going to be looking out for more of that as I get to know his piece.
Yeah. So, Gabe, this is a score that Arlen will have just gotten. Are there any surprises in there that you need to prepare her for?
I don't think so. I think it's as I get older and near 40, I just feel
I ought to smack you. Older, near 40.
Well, I just feel kind of less and less fussy and less precious, and more embracing this idea of music for use. And I don't mean that as a hedge, but I remember something that my friend and colleague Nico Muley has talked about for years of just this idea, is it preferable to silence? And hopefully sometimes silence is preferable. But I think this is music that feels like I'm not trying to be anyone other than who I am. There's no pose in it, and I hope that there's also a lot of room in there for Arlen to kind of make it her own.
Yeah. And, you know, that idea of music as an art form that can have some utility, that's that's not a new idea. I mean, you know, music has always had a use, and the idea of, you know, the composer with a capital C sort of creating something out of nothing in his, and it was always a him, his little ivory tower in 19th century Germany or whatever, that's the outlier. The idea that you just talked about, music that people can have some use for, is a really powerful and very deeply ingrained part of humans making music.
Yeah. I mean, I think in this context, when I say music for use, I really mean like something for Arlen to play.
To play, yes.
You know?
That is a useful thing for a cellist, to have a piece for cello to play. Arlen, have you done a lot? Is there a lot of contemporary solo cello music that you've come across that has really spoken to you?
I would say that I just keep becoming more and more aware of more and more of it. So I think there's a lot out there because I'm still discovering, and hopefully I'll be discovering and making for many years. But yeah, there's quite a bit out there.
All right.
And lots of different styles. So there's something for everyone.
And now there's one more piece, and we're about to hear its world premiere performance. Arlen Hlusko playing Gabriel Kahane's work called Hollywood and Vine.
That was really beautiful. Okay. That was Hollywood and Vine by Gabriel Kahane, performed by Hlusko. And that, like everything else on this program, was a world premiere. It was commissioned by our longtime friends and board members, Raleigh Marcus and Stephen Block. So thank you.
Thank you, Raleigh and Stephen. And what a beautiful combination. These two artists had never met before. And so that's one of the really exciting things about these commissions is taking an incredible artist like Gabe Kahane, putting in with an incredible performer like Hlusko, and the magic that comes out of that. So that's one of the great joys for us.
There's a lot of matchmaking going on here.
Very good. And a lot of great people in California. Hi, Raleigh. Hi, Stephen. I hope you guys are awake.